champion beyond even what his kit just provides.
It does seem like NIP want to go more towards a stable composition that can potentially hover over objectives, at least with the Maokai to start off with. And this combo we've seen used so lethally. The poke that you get with the Jace, if you get anything ahead with this pick, but as well as the preemptive setup you get with the Maokai is so deadly. And on the other side, we do still have some very heavy meta picks available. Wukong, which was banned away in the second phase last time around, should be a big priority here to give Aki a little bit more breathing room.
It also gives you the ability to disengage from the Maokai ult because the Wukong clone will tank up one of the tendrils in the Nature's Grasp. That's very important. That's one of the big reasons we see Wukong particularly into Maokai as well. Despite him being a good champion in general, it's just another interaction which makes him really strong. Maokai Jace, a combo which buys a lot of space for the Shock Blast to come in. My issue here, though, is it's a good combo, but when you put the names OMG and NIP into this game, and you look at how NIP won Game 1, it was about them being proactive and able to play very aggressively on the map. This is more stand your ground, play keep away. Playing keep away versus OMG rarely works. They are very good at reaching you despite your keep away tactics. So even with these combos being meta and Invincible going back to the Gnar, another champion he's picked up time after time, I'm looking at OMG's champions and I think this is a much better place for them in Game 2 compared to that Game 1 draft.
Yeah. I will also just say this is a 6th Ahri play from Creme so far this play, and a 6th Gnar play from Invincible. So definitely leaning on comfort here for both sides in terms of a couple of their solo laners. But now we're getting into the second phase. We get that Malphite ban and the Rakan from NIP. On the other side, we have that Lucian ban. So rightfully so, taking away some of that 2v2 aggressive nature of Photic and Zhuo.
Okay, so yeah, that's worth noting actually. A lot of the time by this point of the game, you've got a lot of your bot lane champions locked in. So your primary duo is going to start getting taken away. The FLS, of course, so very, very strong. And this is a little bit of a worry in its own right for NIP now because you know that Shanji has a very wide champion pool. Banning out his champions in the second round is not going to have the same effect as banning away primary bot lanes because bot lane is such a powerful point on the map right now. As we were seeing in the interview from Angel before the game, if you get a lead in bot lane, you tend to win. So letting that Aphelios go through when you have no bot lane picks yourself locked in, it's fairly difficult to figure out what you're going to pick now in 4 and 5.
Hey, this is something that we've seen at least very heavily in week number 1 as a response to Aphelios, and something that when it gets off the ground running will actually, if we've seen, dumpster the Aphelios in the matchup. So
yeah,
going with a very heavy, momentum-based composition right now for NIP, it'll be countered at the moment by the Nautilus with a lot of that forward frontal engage and maybe a little bit of team fight sauce thrown in there from OMG.
This is the worry, right? Because the problem wasn't that there are 80 carries available. Jinx, great 80 carry. The question is, can you now 5th pick a support that allows you to, 1, lane into the Aphelios Nautilus? That's difficult in its own right. And then also survive a team fight versus the Wukong, the Ahri, and everything else. Because you look at the Aphelios Nautilus and you probably predict that Braum coming through. That's one of the last remaining supports that can buy you some space. Braum doesn't save you versus a cannon and a Wukong getting right on top of you because their ultimates aren't projectiles. You can stand on top of your Jinx, but you just die valiantly with them. You only have 1 exhaust to kind of take down multiple players. So I'm looking at OMG's comp now, and that 4-5, after the way that the draft came out, made it very difficult for NIP to pick a support that would satisfy laning phase and then also the team fights, which are going to be so important later.
And that's why I was so curious that they waited so long to grab these, but maybe some priority given elsewhere, wanting to run this kind of poke you down, engage into you while you're on an objective style composition and look for a front to back fight, where I think OMG have a lot of flexible options for themselves. And the way that Game 1 went, they had one option. It was make it to the late game. It feels like this time around they have a little bit more breathing room, as has kind of been the theme so far for them.
Yeah, well, OMG, they'd want a little bit more room than to just breathe. They want to find themselves in a very strong position in this game and slap back in Game 2. The way that OMG does tend to, they have themselves some iffy Game 1s to settle themselves in. It's one of the beauties of the LPL as a region. Best of 3 is all day, every day. It gives you that ability to revisit some of these more difficult questions posed to you on the first time of asking.
So we saw questions answered by Angel in game number 1. He even was speaking about how important this lane matchup will be. We said at the very beginning how important him versus Angel, or Angel versus Creme, will be. And we saw a little bit of that go down in game number 1. Volatility is what I expected. Mobility is what we always get and what we got. And now we're looking at game 2 that Creme can try to bounce back in this one-on-one matchup, back on the Ahri, and especially trying to even up the odds here as we hit the Rift for game number 2. It's NIP in their home arena on their home Rift versus OMG.
Back onto the Rift we go. Can I just say, one of my favorite things about casting in summer is that we've just had a new Ahri skin come out, Snow Moon Ahri, and it's a beautiful skin to look at in game. So like all the LPL players picking it as well. It makes me personally very happy.
No bias, right? No bias.
No, I'm very transparent about that one. Can you not see my background?
We get
one
all
of the most
gios,
important things
though.
I did. One of the most important things I did in the break between spring and summer is bring back another Ahri statue I had to put on the wall, put on the wall behind me. Ready for summer split. Creme currently stood around here, not going to get picked out just now, standing in a safe enough spot. But
So,
NIP potentially looking for a Braum level 1 invade.
I want to harken back to game 1. It was Aki who made Shadow hate his life in the jungle. And now maybe a little bit of payback from NIP. A late invade is a possibility here, and they could get so much value. There is no vision down Shadow. They're not going to check the red buff. So Shadow's just going to try to sneak away with the chicky nuggies. He's making it away like a bandit here, potentially.
Shadow is going to get out with level 2. I don't think Ppgod's able to kind of get into that lane. Might be able to blow a flash out of Creme if he's lucky. Not able to do so. Creme hovering towards that top side. Looks like OMG, just by assumed information, know that Shadow is going to be on that bot side of the map. However, with this said, you've got a camp stolen by Shadow this time. Very difficult, very opposite to what happened in game 1. Aki, though, immediately goes over and says, "Hey, no, this is my job. I'm going to bully out this."
You wanted to fight me, right? You wanna say something? That's pretty much how Aki's approach at this point, and he's gonna continue it. This is literally picking up where we left off in game number 1.
I think what Aki is doing right now is trying to buy enough time until the point he has smite against Shadow. He's gonna get his flash blown if he's not careful.
He kind of knows, though. He didn't take that quick corner there, just realizing that he can use the extra damage from the little kitty cats in the bush to help in this 1v1, but Invincible is getting pressured down, and with a wave crashing in topside, not really going to have a lot of help here for Shadow, at least.
So what Aki's done now is he has a slight advantage in when smite was used. He can smite away this if he can get it down low enough in the next few seconds. Creme's coming over. Shadow will probably have smite. This is going to be a flip.
Looks like Shadow wants to walk away from this one. Angel not really feeling confident to pressure over Aki. Go right back to it, though.
I mean, like, this is just what he did exactly in game 1. Trying to just pin back Shadow. He's not winning the camps in the same way. What he has done, even though he's not necessarily stomping the jungle matchup, is allow Shanji a free crash on top side to hit that tower, allow Creme a lot of free time in this mid lane as well. Ahri is very strong in individual 1v1 lanes. He's just saying, look, players though the jungler's not there because the jungler actually isn't there.
Yeah, and the crash on top of that huge wave for Shanji just means the Shadow has no backup. Creme is pushing consistently in mid lane, changing up a little bit of the tactic from last time around, and it's working so much better right now for OMG is they are consistently playing around that very aggressive style of Aki.
Yeah, so now you have 2 very good level 1 supports now onto the map as well. You need to factor that in if you're going towards the bot side of the map. Nautilus, Braum, incredibly good at affecting the game at very early levels. So Shadow not feeling strong enough to go into the pushing bot lane of OMG and also the strong jungle matchup at that Wukong early on. So Aki going to get the double scuttle, even though the early camps weren't necessarily as easy to take as they were in game 1.
See Aki go right to Shadow's jungle, maybe looking for a potential wraparound on an Angel who is very low in the mid lane. We'll get it back off. Sees that the wolves aren't there, sees also a kitty cat that's in the bush, and realizes Shadow has already been able to clear ahead of him.
Again, Aki just doesn't believe in his own jungle camps. maybe he's taking the Ivern approach and says, no, jungle camps are friends, not fruit, at least on his side of the map. Finally going to go back over to his Raptors. He's disavowed his oath of neutrality against his own jungle camps, and he's going to at least be ahead in the early game eventually after this point. I mean, considering that Shadow was MVP of game 1, player of the game, it's a good way to start off game 2 for OMG.
I really appreciate Aki's approach of this whole series so far. As you said, why do I need to take my jungle camps if I could just take yours? But he will actually end up getting that full clear going on his side, at least to some extent. So trying to even up some of this advantage that he can get by collecting as much as he can. He did have like that 30 CS advantage in game number 1. Not going to have as much of a lead, but still a lot of pressure on Shadow early. But this Maokai pick is so devastating as the game goes on. The amount of control and pressure you can have around objectives is huge. As now, speaking of huge, Shanji with the combo. Aki be looking at top lane. The slicing maelstrom, not enough. We did get a couple flashes burned.
It's gonna force Invincible back to base. This will mean that, particularly without the teleport, Invincible is going to lose himself some minions on top side. However, 2 flashes away from Shanji and Aki, that's still a silver lining for NIP, and a significant one at that. Shadow in the right place at the right time with a great Bramble Smash to disengage for his top laner.
Kind of been the case of things right now for Shadow. We'll need to figure out, though, how to deal with this top side, as there's a giant CS lead developing for Shanji, and that is now multiple waves crashing. So, like, there's been at least 2 or 3 waves crashing every time we've seen this top lane go this way. So Invincible try to find a way out of this hole.
Shanji really said God gives his biggest CS leads to his smallest top laners. It's the yodel, it's yodel on yodel violence up there.
That's so wrong. They should be friends. They should be friends. They are not friends this time around. Abel
it's like when you introduce. Yeah, I mean, Chakrams on bot side allow Abel to get some damage on that tower as well. So, I mean, OMG, really strong early game comparative to game 1. And this is, again, kind of rolling back into the same point we brought out from the draft in game 2 compared to game 1. NIP, these are strong champions, don't get me wrong. Particularly in terms of the top side. They locked in a lot of those top side champions very early, obviously. Picks 1 to 3. But these are not proactive picks which stop OMG from being able to play their game. OMG are one of the best proactive teams in the LPL, giving them some extra space and breathing the room for that by not picking as oppressive a composition as in game 1. You can see what that means for the early game, where OMG once again have themselves a very strong early game, even that they even had that in game 1. But coming into this mid game as well, they don't have to be afraid of the winning side lane from NIP and the TF getting across the map.
Exactly that. They don't have that instant regret button for the other side, as we do have that Rift Herald coming up. We saw pretty heavy prevalence around that as it spawned last game. Actually had a little bit of team fight action around it last time around, but no early dragon focus here maybe means we have a bit of a different mindset in game 2.
What Aki's done in this early game has allowed his laners to just stay in lane and do their thing. And when you have the ability for the Cannon to do that into a good matchup in the Gnar, particularly mini Gnar, really can't do much against a Cannon who starts getting rolling. It's allowed OMG to get this gold lead, and now eventually they roll back around towards this dragon. Charm lands onto mid lane, but Angel taking some good trades here.
Creme in a little bit of trouble there. Angel just pressuring him out as Shadow will make the crossover. Dragon already started, but NIP bot lane is here to contest, and Aki got to get out of dodge here as the dragon resets.
Resets, but there's no TP from Creme. So all this has ended up being is kind of delayed dragon take from NIP instead. OMG, in game 1, they got their timings a bit wrong in some of their dragon takes, particularly into the late game. They tried to rush them down, NIP managed to disengage from them. Now very early into game number 2, they mistimed that dragon once again. NIP able to pick that one up for free. Now the Mountain Dragon going to be second on the Rift.
I still think that NIP's composition, if you are starting the objective or if you are in point in place, they have so much more power. If they can just poke you down, have a lot of say on how they're going to enter a fight, that's where this composition really comes alive.
It does. It's also where it goes to die occasionally too, because if you don't have good vision control, you lose the side lane. Shanji takes great offense at you standing still, and will flash right on top of you. As it stands, big run towards his top side. Zhuo and Shadow looking to protect their top laner, who is continually falling down. No flash this time, remember. Shadow, he might be able to flash forward here.
They actually get this, though, with the big combo. It's the Slicing Maelstrom back, Invincible getting low, but he has that hop, and Shanji should go down here, will end up falling, but Aki with a double cleanup, but the Cyclone get whipped up in the storm of OMG. Zhuo will dodge out, but here comes Ppgod, hits the dredge line, and this should be Creme wiping this one up as one more goes through. The fire will be lit under NIP.
What OMG lacked in numbers at the start, they make forward in their elite players going top side. Angel, though, goes bot side.
Abel in some trouble here. Abel will go down here as a return. NIP gets something as Angel actually gets the kill onto Abel.
Importantly so, Angel getting some good work done on this Jace. Felt like it was a huge moment in that top side for OMG to get so much gold away from NIP, getting 2 assists onto the cannon. NIP, they moved in strength to try and deny Shanji pulling ahead in this game too much. Sadly not able to do so. NIP just checking that Herald, I think, actually, with that play. They notice that no one is on it, and we come back onto the map where it's still a sizable victory for OMG. When left in isolation, we've seen Shanji do very well. One of the things we asked for from game 1 is, hey, we need to give some more agency to Shanji from the side of OMG. NIP said, no, we would like that to really not happen, and so they send 3 people up there, but the timing's not quite there. The exhaust comes through to deny some of the damage. Can't exhaust the tower, so that one's a little bit awkward. And then the rest of the party come to play.
Also, I will just say, Zhuo, if he hits that Winter's Bite, the play comes a little bit differently. I still think Aki cleans up, but chain of events goes a little bit differently there. OMG able to respond, and the fact that Aki himself gets those 2 kills is so huge with how aggressive he's been playing. We also see that they've just taken the Rift Herald, and they're already looking top as Invincible doesn't have Meganar, and the CC chain should follow. The flash has already come out, but a dead little Gnar goes to Aki's pockets.
He's already an endangered species. Why do you have to make it even more so? 2 deaths in as many minutes feels like. NIP losing a lot around this top side. At least Photic gets some plates in that mid lane. Full turret in the mid lane. Abel,
the response.
die?
Oh, because of the Moonlight Vigil from the Severum, he doesn't go down to the Super Mega Death Rocket. Actually, the charge goes continuously to the top side, and that's a tier 2 tower that should get a little bit low. It goes down, actually.
Big play on that top side from OMG. That side of the map is completely blown out. The gold given over to this Wukong, and the cannon is absolutely disastrous for NIP. You only have 1 exhaust from NIP. You can use that on one of the Wukong and the cannon at this point, and with 3 kills onto Aki, he actually has to be a valid target for that exhaust now. You wish you would just have to worry about that cannon, but OMG, they're already finding themselves in a position where they are looking forward to these team fights as opposed to problem-solving their way through the draft in game 1.
The fact that you have to deal with such a scary Venn diagram just makes me think back to college, and I am terrified at this point because the Shanji Aki combo is so scary, but then you look behind them and you've got Creme on Ahri and you've got Abel on Aphelios, and it gets even worse, right? Yeah. And I think you do have a lot to say with a Photic Jinx that's getting ahead in terms of CS, but you saw that player gold graph, right? Like, Shanji hasn't gotten any of the kills, gotten a lot of the assists, but this gold lead is coming from this lane discrepancy in those plates, that turret that went over, and it's just so hard for NIP to find a place to play through.
Now, something you said there, I resonate with very strongly, and it was actually about the Venn diagrams rather than any of the analysis you just said. I did a degree in physics. The hardest thing I ever studied was a thing called advanced electrodynamics, and I would still take that over Shanji's cannon in this game if I was NIP. Because the electrodynamics coming out of the cannon are probably going to end this game if he gets a good angle. NIP vision control becomes the name of the game now. If you start slipping the net a little bit on how that works. There's a teleport, there's a flash, there's an ult waiting for you. He's got a Dark Seal with some stacks. He has an incredible amount of magic pen between the Sorcerer's Shoes and the first Proto Belt built up as well. NIP, again, they are the ones problem solving now. They're the ones which have to figure their way out of this mess. A Jinx ult does not steal the dragon. That's going to add to their woes.
You have Ppgod, the linebacker there, just waiting for that rocket the whole time. It's like, where are you going to come from, Jinx? But now we get the Infernal Soul onto the Rift. We got the Dragons traded 1-for-1 there. NIP not really getting anything in the trade back as the towers were falling during that Dragon trade. Angel was trying to get something up in top side. Abel should be able to clean up this side lane tower too. So right now, OMG in the driver's seat. Speaking of driver's seat.
They're heading to...
oh, God!
Wow, they're heading to the morgue with Shadow's body. That's where they're driving. He's dead again.
Yep, that happens. Shadow not going to be taken. He's going the AP route as well, and it's still so early with no advantage anywhere for NIP. Oh my goodness, Shanji doing so much damage to Angel right now. Slicing Maelstrom signals the end potentially. One more Shuriken could do it, and there you go to the back of the head.
Might have to bat out another one of his champions. The Cassante and the Rumble weren't enough. The cannon picked on that last round has absolutely put NIP into the coffin. OMG, they come out from game 1 getting absolutely slammed, but as we know they can do, they absolutely right the ship in game 2. And NIP, this was the kind of play that they would be absolutely winning in that first game. They would have had a TF coming over to help them. They would have had some proactivity on the map, but it's just not the same style of composition. As you were saying earlier, if they get to stand and fight, buy themselves that time to poke people out, that's all great. That's awesome. That's what they can do. They are not built to face off against very fed, strong solo laners, starting to pick them off before they can group up.
Kennen may be small, but Shanji is big and flexing all over NIP. I think the Kennen being a crucial pick in his past and the success that we've seen, the Dark Horse runs from OMG, this has been Shanji's home, and he finds so many ways to affect the game just out of draft, but also finding priority from top lane. We heard from Angel how important that is for mid lane. Well, even through the desert that is active top laners in the LPL right now, sometimes we get influence from that lane.
And you know what? Since no one is currently facing off in different areas of the map, one of the things which I'd really like to mention with this too is that when you talk to people across other regions as well, I was chatting with some of the coaches from the LEC, the team which they look towards the most is OMG in the LPL in terms of the way that they innovate. They taught the world how to play around top side of the map. They played a lot of the Sejuani Yone combinations, and Shanji's kind of melee champions would play around that too. They played around some really long range engage, Maokai ults rooting in place for Rumble as well. This is a team which has done so well at finding different ways to play the accepted meta of League of Legends. When everyone was playing bot side, OMG found ways to make it work through top.
My favorite will still stand and be the Shanji Shyvana coming through. One day maybe we get back to that at some point, but I just don't feel like it's going to be relevant. Still one of my favorite calls I've ever had, and favorite moments was the running down a couple notable EDG members. But now we're going to look back at what this
is going to be a deep cut. Reminds me of Darian. For those of you that remember Gambit Moscow 5, Darian was the kind of guy who would say, hey, he would play actually the proxy Shyvana as well back in Season 2. So that was a long time ago, but anyone who was watching back in 2012, I know that Gambit Moscow was my brother's favorite team. And, you know, I got introduced to League through him, so they obviously resonate a lot within our family of League of Legends. But you look at a player like Shanji, he just goes there and he goes, yeah, I can play this right now. This seems like a good pick. And he makes it work more often than he doesn't.
He does. I just remember as Shyvana took over the world, I feel like I could just see him sitting there all smug and smiling in his chair. But as we
maybe
get back
if he plays it enough,
too,
we'll finally get the Shyvana update, the ASU. Maybe
maybe. I doubt it. He kind of run rampant last time around.
Yeah.
Yeah, maybe asking a little bit too much. We do have a dragon on the Rift that is not Shyvana, and it's coming up in about 45 seconds. It is just a second dragon for either team. I think we've done a good job of trading objectives either way, but this is a point where OMG themselves are looking for a bit of momentum uptick here. Their second item completed for Abel. They want to try to utilize that, but NIP can try to get this composition online now that they are themselves hitting 2 items.
You're about to get Muramana. You're about to get yourself Jinx into a good position as well. Has those 2 items from Gale Force and the Kraken Slayer. So NIP, they're not without damage. It's just, how do you get to do that damage if you get anyone caught out of position like this?
This can't happen, that's for sure. As Flash comes out from Invincible, there will be TP responses coming through as immediately slicing Maelstrom. Creme is lighting him up too as Angel goes down. Invincible tries to get Meganar, misses the ulti, but just tried to get the activation. And he goes straight down to a double kill to Creme.
Shanji emotes, Creme dashes forward into the Jinx ult that might have been able to clear up one. OMG tear NIP across the top lane, pushing the mid lane as well.
They got a couple charges there in the mid lane, a tier 2 tower down. There will be a TP bot side from Shanji, who just completed a Rabadon second item, by the way, straight to a tier 2 tower.
I mean, this is just completely off the chain from OMG. They find themselves an opening, and they've torn off the entirety of the arm of NIP, who showed them just that one fingertip outside of the armor. Going to go back towards this dragon as well. It's a clean sweep across the map. They get the top side fight into the mid lane push, into a bot side turret, into a dragon. It starts off with NIP trying to break one of these aggressive plays, at least stop OMG having the momentum on the map. But once again, they're doing this into all of the tools available from the hyper-fed solo laners of OMG, comboing up together through the top side of the map.
God, it just feels so good to be an
What a
OMG fan
bro,
of this game
Creme. What a
number
bro.
2.
Jumps into the
it-
way of a rocket. Like, if you ever ask your teammate in solo queue, would you catch a grenade for me? Creme absolutely would. Comes back out into the map, 3 items. Medjai's built up as well. He's ready to snowball around the rest of his team.
He's a little angry off that game number 1, I would say. Maybe not appreciating Angel's TF answer into his Ahri, but this time around able to have a lot more influence from that mid lane, and that's what we expected from both these guys, right? Angel has come into NIP and breathed life into them, it felt like, and Creme had started to look like echoes of his previous self, his MVP rookies of the split kind of style going on, where he feels confident and comfortable, and it feels like now we've gotten the perfect shade of both of them in game 1 and game 2 respectively.
NIP, unfortunately for them, shades of their former selves from that first game at least, and again we had some worries coming out of that draft. Not as much proactivity, not as much ability to win in side lanes or pretty much anywhere else on the map, thinking about it now. They have still got themselves some damage to play with, but we haven't seen a 5v5 pretty much yet. We basically haven't. OMG haven't been giving it to NIP, and now the Baron's available only a couple of minutes after spawned. NIP, they have themselves a Maokai ult, they have themselves an ability to get towards this. They're looking for a steal.
That's so big. They get the bear. Now they're looking for the fight as well. There's Shanji flank here as well. It wasn't even a flank. He just flashed over the wall there. Angel does get a trade back, but it's now front to back for OMG. They get engaged off of Shadow on the side. Creme getting a little bit low. Photic is trying to light him up, but Abel, he's stepping forward. He got so many chakras. Photic, he won't get the trade back down. And Angel running away for his life, trying to get saved by Shadow here. But OMG, with that Baron buff, get the resets, get back onto the map, and have complete dominion.
Credit to Angel and Photic. They had themselves some damage, and they did about as good as you could hope for in that play. But this is the problem with picking that Braum on that 5th pick. It's going to do fine against lane, against Abel and Ppgod, Aphelios and Nautilus. But what do you do against the cannon? You can't body block that ultimate. The exhaust comes through, but at this point, the cannon is so fed. And you can only be in one place at once. So while Cannon does fall, he does enough to buy some space for the rest of his team to slaughter the top side of the fight. Of course, he doesn't catch the carries completely. That's where the gold lead really comes into play. If you were any more even in this game, of course, Abel would probably die there. Doesn't happen to be the case, though. OMG walk away with a 1 fight, walk away with a Baron.
Really good momentum swing. Now 10,000 gold in the lead for OMG. Look at those damage numbers. It ain't coming from one place. It's all of the heads of the Hydra. You see 4,300, not too shabby for Photic, but what can you do in a situation like this as they are sieging down the inhib towers here? That's all that's left for NIP.
Creme feels like he is safe enough to be the person on the side lane splitting in 1-4. No flash on Shanji right now. Not able to completely go in.
There's that body blocking you were talking about earlier on in the game from Aki. We'll dodge out of the Super Mega Death Rocket. Goes right back in, though. That's a big Mega Gnar, but they dodge out of it for the most part. Moonlight Vigil connects, and damage done! OMG! They actually get Photic trying to get something over there. Angel is the dodge out of the dredge line, but it's OMG with unrelenting pressure here. Will find an inhib.
Get that inhib, get themselves another one-team fight, and again, there's too many damage sources at this point. In game 1, OMG had one damage source, and that was the Zeri, and that became a big problem later on. Now, everyone contributing to these huge team fight victories from OMG.
They're just looking for the end right now. They're going to TP in. They still got 35 seconds on the Baron buff, and they're looking at the Nexus. OMG trying to push us to 3 games as his tradition. Lockdown comes on to Photic and goes golden, but the Nexus is in the eyes of OMG. They turn, they head straight to game 3, and we got a series, baby.
You cannot keep OMG down. Beat them in 1 game. Good luck doing it in the 2nd. They slap back in game 2. Really night and day performance from that first game. A lot of it is on draft. A lot of it is on how they thought about entering that game. And of course, that buys into one of the big things that we love talking about OMG. This is a team with a very strange identity where they are one of the most cerebral teams in the draft phase and outside of the game. When they get into the game, it's all aggression all the time. It's a real disconnect between the brains of the draft and the brawn in game as well. But in game 2, you can see where those brains have got them.
Yeah, I think they had a nice little game plan. It was a little bit of an adaptation from game number 1, but specifically felt like they were a lot more comfortable on blue side as well. The Wukong truly unlocked Aki. It was the fact that we went back to the Aphelios. We had the Ahri again for Creme, but Also, just having that primary setup between that mid jungle 2v2 was so important. We highlighted that so much coming into the series, and we didn't really get that from OMG in game number 1. But having that lead in topside from Shanji enables that, and that's something else we talked about early on.
For sure, because we already had in game 1 the winning jungle matchup for Aki. The difference in game 2 is having the winning top lane matchup alongside what was happening in the mid lane
Exactly.
2v2 as well. So I think it was very important that, I mean, in game 1, they did try to leverage Shanji's champion pool on that red 5 pick. It's just trying to deal with the Jackson in the side lane that's one problem. Trying to deal with Jackson in an individual lane and then also a TF Vi roaming up to your lane. You felt like you have to pick something that is undiveable under a turret, and Sion is just about that. That wasn't enough for them in game 1. Game 2, you didn't have to worry about nearly as much. Now going into game 3, you're going to have to try and replicate this again from blue side on the side of NIP in terms of saying, okay, how do we stop Shanji being a threat in an individual lane? How do we stop the playmaking coming through from OMG? They did it in game 1. With the additional learning now OMG have from that, can they do it again in the same sides we assume on game 3?
The question is, how many more bans go towards Shanji? Like, do you have to continue to ban? This was the first time you've gotten
Mazel, there are 5 bans in the game. There are 5 bans in the game.
Are you going to go all 5, though? That's so many other reasons. You still have to ban the meta picks. You don't want to let any of those through, but you see why Shanji's Kennen has not either been given over to him in the past or why he's made a name on it, because this man popped off on this pick, and so much dominance in the solo lane itself led to so much progress early on for OMG.
And you know what? This is also a great way. So for those of you who try to convince your friends to come watch LPL, first off, they shouldn't need convincing. It's a great league. But if there's anything to kind of put on the table, you watch game 1 and you say, oh, we're so bored of Lucian Nami. That's how you play Lucian Nami in game 1. And you say, oh no, but our Western Kennens, they're so bad. Kennen here is absolutely insane. LPL Kennens are some of the very best in the world. And Shanji is up amongst them as well, doing a really good job in this game in individual laning phase, in comboing up with his top side of the map, and then completely brutalizing both side lanes and team fights.
I think Angel had some give for NIP. I liked the strength that the Jace was represented with from him, but I still think that, again, it just wasn't enough. It wasn't the same style from the TF in game number 1, but I do expect some of that style to come back in game number 3, but specifically, if another kind of wake-up performance comes like this from OMG, this is how they've closed out series in the past. We are going to take a little break while we get